You ever wonder what truly lives beneath the ocean? Not the blue water we see from the shore, not the waves breaking against the sand. I mean beneath, down where sunlight dies, where pressure crushes steel, where no human breath has ever reached. Out there, in the deep black, something waits. And when it calls you, you don't return the same. My name is Evan Marshall, deep sea rescue diver for the U.S. Coast Guard. And this is the story I spent 8 years trying to forget. The night we found a ship that shouldn't exist. A ship that disappeared in 1894. And the night the ocean tried to take my mind. It was 2:17 a.m. when the emergency line rang. I remember because I was half asleep on the metal bench, my boots still on, radio pressed against my chest. The ocean outside the station was calm, just a dull roar like distant traffic. The dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker. Marshall Unit 3, unidentified vessel detected 43 miles off the Carolina coast. No AIS, no radio response. Unidentified vessel, middle of the night, no signal. That's never good. My partner, Riley Grant, lifted his head from the bunk and muttered, "Great, another drunk fisherman." But when the radar image came through, it wasn't a fishing boat. The silhouette was massive, long, shattered in places, like something old, something abandoned. The Coast Guard database didn't match it with any ship built in the last 100 years. I remember Riley staring at the screen and whispering, "Dude, what the hell is that?" We were ordered to investigate. By 3:05 a.m., our cutter, CG 409 Patriot, was slicing through black water. Sky moonless, wind dead silent, ocean flat as glass. Too flat. Anyone who's worked the sea long enough knows this. When the Atlantic goes completely silent, it's the same as a forest going quiet. It means something's out there. Riley leaned over the railing and said, "Man, why does it feel like the water's holding its breath?" I didn't answer, because I felt it too. At 3:41 a.m., our spotlight caught something on the horizon. A towering black shape, motionless, cold, like a skyscraper rising out of the ocean. Riley's voice trembled. "That's a ship, right?" But it didn't look like any modern ship. No lights, no movement, no engine noise, only the groan of old metal shifting with the waves. It felt dead. As we got closer, the details sharpened. It was ironclad, rusted, and half broken. Wooden masts splintered in half, ropes dangling like veins. Nameplate cracked, but readable under the beam. SS Arthur Helm, 1894. Riley froze. "Bro, that ship went missing over a century ago. I remember it from Discovery Channel." He wasn't wrong. The Arthur Helm disappeared with 62 crew. No wreck ever found. No distress signal recorded. It simply vanished. And now it was floating, upright, without a single scratch that looked recent. Like the ocean had kept it alive, preserved it, waiting. My skin crawled. We contacted command. Static, no response. So procedure said, board the vessel, check for survivors, check for hazards. But nothing in our manual covered ghost ships from the 1800s. Still, we climbed. The ladder was freezing cold. Even the rust smelled old, like century-old iron. When my boots hit the deck, the wood groaned under my weight. Riley swung his light around, and that's when we realized there were footprints, bare footprints, wet, fresh, leading across the deck toward the captain's quarters. Riley's voice cracked. "Please tell me those are yours." I didn't even answer. The air felt wrong, too thick, too cold. Then we saw them, scratch marks all over the walls, deep, violent. Some were 6 feet high, like something tall had raked its nails across the metal. But what made my stomach twist was the writing carved into the door. "Don't go below." Riley whispered, "Evan, let's go back. This is not human stuff." But then something happened that froze both of us. The ship suddenly listed to the right, groaning like a massive beast waking up. And from somewhere below deck, we heard it, a slow, dragging sound, like something huge was moving, and wet, very wet. Riley grabbed my arm. "Dude, someone's down there." But my instincts, every fiber of training, every survival instinct I had, they screamed the opposite. Whatever was below deck was not someone. It was something. We followed the footprints anyway, because protocol said we had to. The tracks led to the captain's cabin, door half hanging off its hinges. Inside, the room looked untouched since the 1800s. Maps, ink bottles, captain's journal open on the desk. But the chair had deep claw marks on the arms. And then Riley shined his light at the ceiling. I wish he hadn't. Hanging from the beams were ropes tied like restraints. 5 or 6 of them, all snapped, like someone or something had pulled free. Riley whispered, "Evan, we need to get the hell off this ship." And then, thud. Something hit the floor below us. Heavy, wet, dragging again. Closer this time, much closer. Riley mouthed the words, "It's coming upstairs." And for the first time in years of rescue missions, drowning victims, storm operations, I felt real fear. Not normal fear, primal fear. The kind animals feel right before the predator steps out of the dark. And then, from the staircase leading below, we saw a hand. A human hand, waterlogged, pale, veins dark blue like ink spreading under the skin. The fingers curled around the stair rail, one by one, and then it pulled itself up. Whatever it was, it used to be human, but it wasn't anymore. The hand tightened around the rail. Skin wrinkled and swollen, like it had been underwater for months. The nails were long, cracked, almost claw-like. Riley stumbled back, whispering, "Evan, that's a corpse. That's a freaking corpse." But corpses don't move. This one did. Slowly, unnaturally, like its joints were bending the wrong way. Another hand appeared, then the top of its head. Wet strands of hair stuck to gray skin. Eyes white, bulging, staring without blinking. The thing's jaw hung open slightly, like it forgot how to close its mouth. Salt water dripped from its teeth. It wasn't breathing. It wasn't alive. But it was moving. And every step it took, the deck creaked as if something far heavier than a human was climbing behind it. Riley grabbed my sleeve, his voice trembling. "Evan, we need to go. Now! But the thing paused on the top step. Then it sniffed. A wet, bubbling inhale, like water filling a drowning man's lungs. Its head twitched toward us. Fast, like a snapping animal. And it smiled. I swear to God, its cracked lips stretched into a slow, impossible smile. Something inside me snapped. Riley, move! We bolted out of the captain's cabin and onto the open deck. The ocean air hit my lungs like icy needles. Behind us, the thing let out a sound I still hear in nightmares. A drowning man trying to scream. We sprinted across the deck, boots slamming against old wood. My flashlight beam shook wildly. The creature burst out of the doorway. Not running, not crawling. It lurched, like gravity didn't apply to it the same way. Its limbs cracked as it moved, popping out of place and snapping back in. Riley yelled, "What the hell is it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My brain was stuck on one horrifying truth. The ship wasn't abandoned. Not completely. The crew never left. They drowned. But the ocean didn't let them die. We reached the far end of the ship, the only place where our cutter was tied alongside. But then we saw it. The rope had come loose. We couldn't jump. It was too far now. We were trapped. Behind us, the creature was getting faster. Its wet feet slapped against the deck, leaving dark prints that steamed in the cold air. Riley pulled out his flare gun, but before he could fire, the ship groaned, deep, like something massive turned beneath us. Then the deck tilted. We lost our balance and slid several feet. The creature didn't. It stood firm, like it belonged to the ship, and the ship belonged to it. Riley raised the flare again. "Stay back. I swear I'll—" Before he finished, the sound hit us. Not from the creature, not from the ship above, from below the waterline, a deep, rumbling call, like a whale song, but wrong, broken, twisted. Riley's voice cracked. "There's more than one." And he was right. The ocean shifted. Something huge brushed the underside of the ship, enough to make the metal tremble. The drowning creature stopped moving and turned its head toward the sound, like it was listening to a command. Then it looked back at us, tilting its head with that awful smile again. Suddenly, bang! Not a flare, not the ship. The captain's cabin door slammed shut on its own, like something inside didn't want us looking there. But above the door, we saw something we missed before. A message carved deep in desperate handwriting. "The sea took us. The sea wants more." Riley whispered, "Evan, this isn't a ghost ship." And then he said the line that still haunts me. "This is a feeding ground." The water beside the deck bubbled, something rising. The first creature stepped closer to us, almost calm, as if waiting. Then a second hand gripped the railing from the water. Dark, swollen fingers. A wedding ring fused to the bone. Another figure pulled itself up, eyes missing, just hollow sockets filled with seawater. One by one, more shapes moved under the surface. At least 3, maybe 4. The Arthur Helm wasn't just a lost ship. It was a coffin. And the crew wanted company. Riley aimed the flare gun again. "Back off! I said back!" He fired. The blast hit the first creature in the chest. The flare burned through stale clothing and rotten flesh, but the creature didn't scream, didn't react. It just looked down at the burning hole like it was mildly curious. Then it took another step toward us. Riley whispered, "Evan, we're dead." But right then, a massive wave hit the side of the ship. Not natural. It felt like something pushed it. The force shook the deck. The line connecting our cutter to the ship surged closer, just enough to reach. I grabbed Riley's arm. "Jump! Now!" We sprinted. The creatures lunged, arms outstretched. We leaped. My stomach dropped as I flew across the gap. My hands slammed onto the cutter railing. I climbed, Riley behind me. The creatures reached the edge of the ship, but didn't jump. They just watched us, smiling. As our cutter engine roared to life and pulled away, the creatures slowly sank back into the shadows of the deck. Like they knew we'd talk, like they wanted the story to spread. Because stories bring people, and people sink. The ocean looked dead behind us, flat, silent, black. But I wasn't stupid enough to believe we were safe. Riley kept glancing back at the Arthur helm, now fading into the distance, a rusted silhouette against the moon. He whispered, "Evan, they didn't jump because they didn't need to." I didn't want to ask what he meant, but I did. He swallowed hard. They followed with their eyes, until we couldn't see them. Things that drown don't need to swim. A chill climbed the back of my neck. We were making good distance when the sky changed, fast. Clouds rolled in like someone painted the night over us. Thunder cracked, but there'd been no storm alert on radar, no warnings. Riley checked the console. "Evan, this isn't right. There's nothing on the scanner, nothing." The wind picked up instantly, slamming into our cutter with terrifying force. Waves rose out of the calm ocean like something underneath was pushing them upward. My voice shook. "Get us out! Full throttle!" He hit the throttle. The engine screamed, but the wave behind us screamed louder. A towering wall of water, at least 20 feet, rushed toward our boat. It wasn't just a storm. It felt like the ocean was trying to take us back. The wave hit. The cutter lifted, thrown like a toy. Salt water filled my mouth as I clung to the rail. We plunged down the other side. The engine coughed, sputtered, and, for a second, died. Riley slammed the ignition. "Come on, come on!" The engine roared back to life. But the next wave was bigger, and behind that wave, something moved. A dark shape rising, massive, long. Not a whale, not a shark. Something without a name. Riley whispered, "The same thing that hit the Arthur helm." Wind howled, waves crashed, thunder ripped the sky apart. But through all that noise, I heard something else. A voice, not human, not underwater. A whisper in my ear, even though Riley was shouting on the other side of the boat. "Come back." I froze. The hairs on my arms stood straight. Cold swept into my lungs. It whispered again, stronger this time. "Come back." I slammed my palms over my ears. Riley yelled, panicked, "Evan, Evan, stay with me. Don't listen." But the whisper wasn't in my ears. It was inside my head. It felt like water dripping into my skull. "Come to us." I squeezed my eyes shut. Images flashed. The drowned creature's smile, the white eyes, the bloated skin, the flare burning through its chest. The deck full of footprints. The carved message, TSEA wants more. My voice cracked. Riley, they're calling us. He didn't even deny it. I know. Lightning lit the ocean for just a split second, but that was enough. Something was moving in the water behind us. Long, pale shapes. Human shapes. Some crawling over the surface. Some floating upright like puppets. Some dragged along by something deeper. All facing our boat. All coming closer. Riley whispered, Evan, they're not swimming. He was right. They were being pulled, drawn forward like fish on invisible lines. Each wave brought them nearer. Their mouths hung open, like they were still drowning, like they always would be. I grabbed the flare gun, the spare one. Riley, if they get on this boat. I know. I cocked the flare, but before I could fire, a massive shape rose under the water beneath the creatures, big enough to rock our cutter from 20 yards away, like something ancient, huge, and hungry was herding them toward us. Riley screamed, Go, Evan, go! Fire, fire! I shot the flare into the water. For a moment, the sea lit up red, a burning spotlight beneath the surface. And what I saw was not a creature, not a whale, not anything that belongs in the ocean. A mouth, or something shaped like one, circular, lined with rings of teeth, opening, opening, big enough to swallow the drowned crew whole. And it was moving up, toward us. Riley pulled the wheel so hard the boat nearly flipped. Evan, hold on! The creature-laden wave slammed into our side. Our cutter lifted, rolled, nearly capsized. A drowned hand slapped the railing inches from my face, fingers breaking backwards as it grabbed. I screamed and kicked it away. The massive mouth thing rose again, closer, pushing waves toward us. Riley yelled, We're not making it, unless we risk the engine. I knew what he meant. Full throttle in a storm like this could tear the engine apart. But full throttle was better than being eaten alive by a circle of teeth from the deepest part of the ocean. Do it! He slammed the throttle. The engine shrieked, too loud, like metal tearing apart from the inside. But the boat leaped forward. The drowned figures were pulled off with the wave, dragged back toward that impossible mouth. One of them reached for us, a woman, wedding ring on her fused bone. Her mouth opened, letting out a bubbling, water-filled scream. Then the darkness swallowed her. The escape. We shot out of the storm like a bullet. Clear skies immediately. No wind, no rain, no waves. The ocean returned to perfect calm, as if nothing had happened. Riley collapsed against the console, shaking. Evan, storms don't do that. Nothing does that. But something did. Something under the Arthur helm. Something that used the dead like bait. We didn't speak again until we reached the coast, and even then, we couldn't explain what followed us, or what whispers I still hear sometimes, when the night is too quiet. Come back. When we finally reached the harbor, the first thing I felt was relief, the kind that makes your knees weak. But the second thing I felt was wrong. People were staring at us as we docked, not curious, not concerned, scared. A harbor officer shouted from the pier, You two, stay on the boat. Do not move. Riley and I froze. Another officer ran over with gloves and a flashlight, pointing it straight at us. Then he whispered to the other, "It's on them too." My heart tightened. What? What's on us? We didn't bring anything." But then he shined the light closer, and I saw it. Thin streaks of gray residue stuck to our jackets, our hair, our sleeves, our arms. Almost like dried salt, but darker, thicker, sticky. Riley touched some, then smelled it, and gagged. "Evan, this is the same stuff from the Arthur Helms deck. The same residue around the footprints. The same residue where the drowned thing stood. The same residue in the flare-lit water." The officer swallowed hard. "You boys need to come with us, right now." They put us in separate rooms. Small, cold metal tables. Fluorescent lights humming like they were ready to burn out. I could see my reflection in the two-way glass. I looked older, paler, like something had drained me. A woman entered. Detective Harper, late 40s, coastal police. Eyes exhausted from seeing too much ocean horror. She set down a manila folder. Inside, photos. Not from our boat, from the Arthur Helm. "Evan," she said, "I need to know exactly what you saw out there." I told her everything. The bodies, the whispers, the waves, the impossible mouth. She didn't interrupt me, just listened, like she had heard stories like this before. When I finished, she took out a photo and slid it across the table. A body washed up on the shore, gray, bloated, mouth open, eyes white. The same kind of creature we saw, except this one was labeled. My skin crawled. She placed another photo on top, a close-up of the body's face. Except this time, the mouth wasn't open. The lips were stretched upward, like the body had been forced to smile. Something inside me cracked. "Detective, what happened to it?" She tapped the photo lightly. "We don't know, but here's what's worse." Another photo. This time, a zoomed-in shot of the body's neck. Thin marks in the skin, not scratches, not cuts. Teeth marks, thousands of tiny ones, circular. I pushed the photo away. "That's the same thing we saw under the water." She didn't deny it. The recording. Detective Harper reached into her folder again. This time, not a photo, a USB drive. The Arthur Helm had an emergency buoy. It was activated before the ship went silent. We recovered an audio recording. My stomach dropped. She plugged the USB into a small dock speaker. "I'm warning you, Evan. This doesn't sound like anything human." She pressed play. Static at first. Wind. The groaning metal of a ship under stress. Then, a man screaming, "Don't lean over the rail! It's arms! It's arms!" More screams. Footsteps running. A wet, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across soaked wood. A sailor shouting, "They're smiling! Why are they smiling?" Then the recording cut to a different sound. Low, rumbling, like a mountain shifting underwater. And then, a single voice. Not a sailor, not human. A whisper that rattled the speaker. "Another." Detective Harper stopped the recording. Riley, in the other interview room, pounded on the wall. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" She unplugged the USB. Earning my full attention, she asked softly, Evan, that voice. Did you hear it out there too? I nodded slowly. It told me, come back. Her face turned white. That was all the confirmation she needed. Detective Harper took a deep breath. There's something else you need to see. But you didn't get this from me. Understand? I nodded. She put down a final photograph. And for the first time all night, Riley stopped yelling in the next room. It was that quiet. The image was blurry, taken during the storm, but clear enough. A wave rising behind a boat. Inside the crest of the wave, something huge, circular, layered, rings of teeth. And in front of it, dozens of pale human shapes moving in the water. Not swimming, being pulled. She whispered. The Coast Guard analyst who enhanced this image quit the next day. Wouldn't come back. I swallowed. What do you think it wants, Detective? Her eyes met mine, terrified. It doesn't want ships. It doesn't want sailors. It doesn't want food. She leaned closer. It wants survivors. Because survivors talk. The warning. They released us at dawn. No charges, no blame, but a warning. Do not go back on the water. Riley agreed immediately, but I didn't. Because when I stepped out into the morning air, next to the quiet ocean, I heard something behind the lap of the waves. Soft, breathing, not my own. And then, a whisper. Come back. Sleep didn't come that night. Not for me. Not for Riley. Not after everything we saw, heard, and barely survived. We stayed in Riley's small coastal apartment, a third-floor unit overlooking the quiet harbor. The kind of place meant for fishermen, retirees, and people who like the sound of waves, before they became something else. Riley locked every door twice, then dragged a chair in front of the main entrance. I didn't blame him. He sat on the couch, staring blankly at the floor, whispering, That voice wasn't in the water, Evan. It was in my head. I wished I could tell him he was imagining it, but I felt the same thing. It wasn't sound, it was presence, like something that knew our names and the shape of our fear. At around 2:10 a.m., Riley finally dozed off. I didn't. I kept replaying the storm, the shipwreck, that impossible mouth rising from the water, and then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text message. The tide is coming. I stared at the screen, confused. Then another message. Do not look outside. My chest tightened. Who was texting me? The detective? The Coast Guard? Before I could think, another message appeared. Evan, don't. But it was too late, because right then, I heard something. Not inside, outside. A long, slow scrape against the building, like wet rope being dragged up the wall. My breath froze. Something was climbing. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, reached for the blind. Another message buzzed. Don't open it. But the scraping got louder, closer. Curiosity killed sailors, they say. It also kills survivors. I opened the blind an inch, and what I saw was wrong. Because 3 floors below us, the ocean tide had risen past the harbor line, too high, much too high. The shoreline was flooding, silently, creeping forward like it was alive. And in the dark water, something was moving. Long, pale shapes. Dozens, maybe hundreds, like bodies drifting. But not with the current. They were moving toward the building. I backed away from the window so fast I nearly tripped. The scraping on the wall grew louder, higher, moving toward our floor. Riley jerked awake. "Evan, what's that sound?" Before I could answer, knock. Not on the door, on the window. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. Riley whispered, "Who the hell is knocking on the 3rd floor window?" My phone vibrated again. "Do not speak. Do not approach the glass." Another knock, this time harder. Tap, tap, tap. Riley grabbed the baseball bat he kept near his couch. "Back away from the window," I hissed. But he stepped toward it. Brave or stupid, I still don't know. He pulled the blind all the way up. I'll never forget what was on the other side. A face. Pale. Bloated. Pressed against the glass. Eyes white as milk. Skin stretched tight. Bits of seaweed tangled in its hair. But the worst part was the mouth. It wasn't open. It wasn't closed. It was stretched into a grotesque, forced smile. The same smile from the Arthur Helm corpse photos. And then, its fingers, gray, wrinkled, webbed, slid across the glass and tapped again. Tap, tap, tap. Riley stumbled backward, dropping the bat. The face slid slowly sideways, like a slug smearing across the window. Then it sank out of sight. But the sound didn't stop. More hands, more scraping. Somewhere underneath us, something huge shifting in the water. Something that made the whole building tremble. My phone buzzed again. "Evan, do not open your door. Do not go outside." Then, "It followed you." A sound like rushing wind roared up from the street. But it wasn't wind. It was water. Salt water slammed into the lower floors like a tidal wave. But the ocean outside was calm. No storm. No wind. Just an impossible surge. Lights flickered. The floor shook. Riley grabbed my arm. "What do we do? What do we do?" A new sound drifted up from the stairwell. Dripping, dragging, wet footsteps climbing the stairs. Slow, heavy, one step at a time, like it wasn't in a hurry, like it knew exactly where we were. Riley whispered, "Tell me you locked the door, Evan." I swallowed hard. I did, but I don't think a lock is going to stop that. The footsteps reached the 2nd floor. Drip, step, step, then the 3rd floor. The hallway outside our apartment creaked. Something wet brushed against the door. Riley held his breath. I held mine. The building went silent, completely silent. Then, a single wet breath on the other side of the door, like something was standing inches away, listening. My phone buzzed. "It knows you survived." Another message. "Do not answer it." And then, something spoke through the door, not with a human voice, with a low, resonant whisper that felt like it vibrated through my bones. "Come back." Riley's eyes widened. That's the same voice from the storm. I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. The creature, the drowned thing, dragged its fingers down the door. A slow, wet scrape. Then, silence. Total silence. We didn't move for a full minute. Then my phone buzzed again. It's gone. For now. The final message. The water receded by dawn. The streets dried unnaturally fast. By morning, it was like nothing happened. Except for one thing. On the window, where the face had pressed, a single handprint remained. Gray, sticky, impossible to wash off. My phone buzzed with one final unsaved message. The sea doesn't forget survivors. Then, the tide will rise again. And then, next time, it comes for you. The ocean around us had gone unnaturally still. No waves, no wind, just silence so thick it felt like the boat was floating in a vacuum. Captain Harris wiped the fog off his binoculars. His voice shook a little, something I'd never heard from that old man. This isn't right. The sea never goes dead still unless something's watching. I wish he hadn't said that, because the moment those words left his mouth, the sonar room went crazy. A single dot, deep, huge, moving upward, and fast. Jack ran out of the cabin, pale as a ghost. Whatever that thing is, it's coming straight toward us. The depth numbers were climbing so fast, it looked like a countdown. 9,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 4,800 feet, 2,100 feet, and then, boom. Not from outside, but from underneath us. The hull groaned, metal screamed. Something massive had just hit the bottom of the ship. Harris shouted, "Do not look overboard." But of course, someone did. Evan. He leaned over the railing with a flashlight, and I heard him whisper, "Oh, God." Because something was rising around the boat. Not a creature, but water. Water forming a wall, like a ring, circling the ship. Something enormous below us was pushing the ocean upward. Evan's flashlight beam touched the surface, and a shape appeared beneath it. Not a whale, not a shark, a jaw bigger than our entire boat. Teeth as long as my arm, rows of them, curved inward, like the mouth of something that drags prey down, not in. Then came the sound, a deep, slow, bone-shaking drumbeat pulse. Thum, thum, thum. Not a heartbeat. No, a signal, like something far below was answering it. Jack started yelling, "It's calling something. There's another one." And then, the water beneath us dropped, like the entire ocean floor just collapsed. The boat tilted violently. Evan screamed, but it wasn't from falling. A shadow rose up, taller than a skyscraper, blotting out the moonlight. It didn't look like any living thing I'd ever seen. A mass of limbs, spines, tendrils, moving like they were learning how to imitate life. Like something that had been asleep for centuries and wasn't supposed to wake up. Harris grabbed my arm. "This ain't a creature, kid. This is a pit guardian, something ancient, something that protects whatever's down there." The ship rocked again. A tentacle wrapped around the stern like a python squeezing a tree. Metal snapped. The deck split. Jack fell. The tentacle jerked, and he disappeared into the black water without a sound. No splash, no struggle, just gone. Evan tried to run, but another limb swept across the deck and I won't describe it. Not because I don't remember, because I remember too well. Harris pushed me toward the emergency raft. Move! It doesn't want all of us. It wants witnesses to go back. It wants people scared, keeps others away. That's why deep-sea survivors always say the same thing. He leaned close to my ear. His voice was barely a whisper. Don't ever follow the lost ships. And then the creature roared. Not a scream, not a growl, but a pressure wave that shook the air itself. A sound that didn't feel heard. It felt injected into your skull. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. The last thing I remember was Harris shoving the raft off the deck as the ship was dragged beneath the rising ring of water. And his final words, "If you survive, never tell anyone what shape it had."